And as Andrew said, I would be very happy if you would feel free to contribute during the talk, because I think it would be interesting to try and break up the hierarchy between auditorium and speaker, and it would also make it much more pleasurable for me if you have any suggestions or comments. What I want to show you first is the work from a modern project, which I did in 95 to 97, and it's all work centered and based in London. And what propelled me to do that body of work was a query on how the built environment, how architecture influences the subject, or what kind of subjectivity is possible within the contemporary urban space, and if that can be detonated, or if there's any space for subversion or even for entry. And the first image I'm showing is vertiginous acceleration, and the titles are actually very important, and that's why I put a lot of emphasis on the title. Vertiginous acceleration gives an indication of my interest within this project, mainly my fascination with vertigo and the pleasure of abandonment. And I wanted to photograph that sensation, which is very much a physical sensation. And vertigo, or the perspective vertigo can offer us, is very different to the modernist vision of an overview, or what has been described as a Faustian view. The perspective of vertigo induces a lot of other unsettling moments, and I'm going to read you a short quote by Deleuze, who for me describes that very well. Limitless vertigo, great dimensions, depths and distances which the observer cannot dominate. The privileged point of view has no more existence than does the object held in common by all points of view. There is no possible hierarchy. So this view of vertigo isn't necessarily a suicidal view, although it could be evoke that idea. It's more about a letting go of falling, no longer dominating with your gaze the city, but spiraling fast down. And vertigo, or the pleasures of vertigo, are of course also related to notions of sexuality and abandonment. And I want to refer to Laura Mulvey, who has talked about how the high-rise is paradoxically linked to the nether regions. And she pointed out that in Blue Velvet, all the sexual deviation happens in the high-rise, and not in the sort of normally sized urban housing. So within popular culture, there has been a mythologizing of the high-rise, and it's seen as a location of some strange sexual games. And I want to stress that it's the view of popular culture, not my own idea, but I'm very interested how the high-rise has become associated with that kind of urban, not problematic, but with this urban challenge. Or why it has become such a potent symbol of urbanity and transgression. This image is called Towering Inferno. Towering Inferno, again, is a reference to popular culture and to that American film in which the high-rise on the day of its inauguration catches fire, burns, and causes an incredible disaster. Again, it's very interesting to think how the high-rise is used as a symbol of disaster, and how the people who have to die first in this disaster movie are the couple who are on the top and who are having a legitimate liaison. They're the ones who get punished first. I'm very happy that I can show my images quite large, because that's how they are, a lot of them are printed. And this projection makes that possible, and it allows you to see all the details. And one of the things I'm not interested in is an urban voyeurism. And the high-rise actually lends itself to that obscenity of the visible, because when you're up on high-rise, you have this great expanse of visual information. And the people on the street also can, when they look up, see what's going on, who's in, and whatever. And I use a very long exposure with my large format camera, which then makes people invisible. So that kind of urban spying is not what I'm interested in, but more how the traces left by the humans imprint themselves onto the photograph. The tower, of course, has a history as a military installation. I mean, one thinks of the observation tower, but also of confinement. Silver plate. Silver plate is a sort of reference to the adolescents who put razor blades on children's slides. And in this silver plate, again, I wanted to investigate the pleasure of this fast going down, this speedy descent, which children obviously very much enjoy. But this pleasure only lasts for a couple of seconds, and then they have to go upstairs again. So it's short-lived pleasure, which is in a slide very interestingly conditioned. This image is called a modern project, and it's the key image of the whole series. It shows the Westway in London, West London, which cuts through the city. And it's very much a manifestation of the sort of modernist urban utopia. And it's exhilarating, but at the same time it's frightening. The proximity of streets to playgrounds is something which was already talked about in Metropolis, in the ideal urban utopia, where those two elements of leisure and movement were envisaged for the future city. And now in West London it has happened. What fascinates me about this particular place in London is how the demarcations you see on the Westway are replicated on the sports grounds. You see all the white lines which tell us about speed and movement and being in line, and certain routes of motion are the same on the road as on the Westway. It's on the sports ground. So our urban possibilities are very much constrained, are very much restricted. You couldn't play anything else but football on a football pitch or anything else and tennis on the tennis court. So this control of the urban space is once not very interesting. And only on the slipway there's a moment of peace, a moment of letting go, where nothing is subscribed. You see that at the end at the top there. Yes, please.
Where do you find your vantage points? Are you back in this house that you've asked to go in, or do you just come across them? Or do you choose specifically other places that you go to?
Well, for me, one thing which in this work was very important was the pleasure of entering these places. I mean, I took this from a high-rise, and at the time I just dared to go into these spaces. I felt that as an artist and as a woman I could explore this, and doing the work allowed me to go up and enter those not forbidden places, but those places one isn't supposed to go.
What time of the day was it you took this picture?
The day?
What time of the day?
I think it was 10 o'clock in the evening, so of course it's wonderful that they can use those facilities at night. And something about this westward development, which I find quite interesting, is that when they built it, the urban planners just wanted to put car parks underneath. And then two Notting Hill campaigners campaigned for all these other facilities to be put underneath there, like the Notting Hill, the market under the Westway, and the children's playground and the sports facilities. Meet me in Arcadia. I was interested in this sort of artificial Arcadia being created by the architects in the city, and it's very much like an architect's model to me. And in the left-hand corner you've got the freedom of the street. Fascinated by the night because I think it has the possibility to give a certain kind of autonomy to the image, so that it no longer is just a document of West London, but it becomes something else. It's possible the night lends in that non-time, so to speak, because I use a very long exposure, so which you can see better here. This long exposure renders the movement into lines. So this is like a 10-minute condensed into a 1-second print. And the night allows me that to do this.
It also dissolves people into.
Yes. Yes. Spatial penetration. It's a police station in Bishopsgate. I'm not trying to render the architecture correct. I'm much more fascinated by perspectives which are perhaps more reminiscent of 1920s expressionist films, like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, where all the perspectives fall into each other, thereby creating more an inner picture of how the character feels.
You don't use the facility of the large format camera to distort the perspective, or you do use it a bit, or do you try to stay naive in relation to that? Or?
I wouldn't call it naive. I'm more willing to play with the chance the 5.0 camera offers, instead of using it to correct perspectives and make it more perfect. This picture is called US Car Wash. It's in Shoreditch, and it's I think the only picture I have that shows advertising. And that's something I consciously try to avoid in my work. I feel that the urban environments are very so full with visual stimulus which encourage commodification. But in this one, I felt it added rather than taking away. The blue line you see at the bottom is the police car speeding by.
Can I just ask you about the previous image, which is that it seems so far, I'm not sure, but the top, the line of bright green windows,
Yes.
on the left-hand side, is that somebody looking at you?
I doubt it.
It just looks like a figure in that window.
Yes, but I think it's too large to be a human being. And it would have been amazing if that person would have stood still for 10 minutes. But that's one of, for me, one of the special pleasures of working with a large format camera is that it allows for chance. I can't really control what happens within this 10-15 minutes exposures. I'm very open to what then happens, and as in the case of the US car wash, like police cars. So although the images are very controlled, I take a step back and let the city do something.
But if someone had got in that car and driven it off, would we come and photo it?
No, I wouldn't like, for example, you can see just about a motorbike behind the police car, which has moved during the shot. That's why it's so ghostly. So I don't quite always know what will come out. That's one of the great, for me, the great pleasures of this process. Cruise control. Again, underneath the restaurant.
Well, police car.
Another police car. But now it's just a thin blue line, now it's just an abstraction. This image is called No Clergyman Attended. And it's actually a very small image. It's about the size of, 10 by 5 centimeters. And I called it No Clergyman Attended after Goethe, The Sorrows of Young Werther, which was a very popular romantic novel in which Goethe describes this young man who committed suicide because of unrequited love. And because he committed suicide, the clergy didn't obviously attend his funeral. And the tragedy which of that moment. But this is not a car crash, it's within Shoreditch fire station, and it's the firefighters dismantling the car for their practice. And I think you can see that it's not a crash because the car is damaged on all sides and no crash would actually have that input on car. 3-star. Corporate leisure. Corporate leisure is the tennis court of De Beers. De Beers are the diamond dealers, South African diamond dealers. And they have this headquarters hidden in Farringdon. You just can see the street level, and above the street level there is this corporate tennis court. And what fascinated me was the rigidity of the place, which is much more reminiscent of prison than a corporate headquarters.
Excuse me?
Yes.
I know in your earlier work you used people within your pictures in the United States. Are you consciously avoiding that now?
I'm not avoiding them. I'm just at the moment. I think another story can be told with the absence of people. And as I said before, the people do leave their presence, and this is man-made, human-made environment. And I think it also allows the audience to inhabit the space, because the place is not already taken up by actors or people, so now the audience can fall into it more easily, I hope. Park house one. A car park in East London. Car parks are very much neglected in a way, but I think they are again icons of modernity, because with the car and its ascent in the 20th century, of course, the car park is of great importance. And what is fascinating about a lot of car parks is that they have an inside and an outside, which is no longer enclosed, but which has been pierced. So when you're in a car park, you're very much aware of the outside. It's kind of open building. And then again, car parks have also been very much attacked in popular culture. They are the places where all the illegal deals are happening, or the drug deals, the money deals, and I'm talking about contemporary American film, which uses the car park as this location of transgression.
Is it a conscious thing that most of these spaces that you're being a voyeur in a male-dominated environment, or male sexuality?
I don't know if these places are really made, and if they are so, then that doesn't mean that they can't be entered by women. And especially the car park has been demonized as a place of danger for women. And I wanted to, for me it's important to enter those places and see what other possibilities they have. What also is very interesting to me is how the car park already shows very visible signs of its aging. you see the stalactites and you see the concrete sort of starting to stain and to basically to fall apart, which is incredible. Thinking about the time those buildings have, how very much of that time they are. The last myth.
To what extent is the specific location important to you as far as editing tomorrow photographs in the East End around that time? Is that therefore incidental that you are around that area, therefore you use that as your...
It is very much so, but I also think the East End is fascinating because it's not just a living area. There's lots of other functions which happen there, like the warehouses, the industrial remnants. So for me it provides a much richer history. I think to work in a suburban area would be a challenge, but not something I'm very much interested in at the moment. And for me it is important that it's an area I'm in. I mean, this is part of Caliban Towers. And it's actually a panorama, and Caliban Towers is named after a tower from Shoreditch, which is called Caliban Towers, thereby showing the kind of irony that encounters by naming one of their high-rises Caliban. And as you all know, I think Caliban is the savage in the Tempest, Shakespeare, the Tempest. And when he has a mirror and sees himself, he's completely destroyed, and this destroys this image of his. What's interesting for me about Caliban Towers is that it still evokes the modernist utopia by someone like Le Corbusier, who wanted his high-rises to be in parklands, and you still have that in the top of the building. But then the mundane creeps in, and you have all the security cameras and barbed wire.
Taking these images, if you take it tonight for 10 minutes and stand in one place and wait. Do you have an assistant, or do you work on your own? How does that impact on your choice of location? Sometimes you need to request it.
On some images I have an assistant, or a number of assistants. For different pictures, different assistants. But I think that's a really nice pleasure to have someone accompanying you who spend time hanging around with you and can enjoy it together. And I think the camera sort of allows this hanging around, which is not something which is encouraged within our relationship to urban space. I mean, the only people you see usually out are the people walking dogs, so they've got a reason to walk because of the dog.
It only allows you to hang around, but it forces you to. When I saw you sort of photograph in front of the police station, I was thinking the act of transgression that is kind of, photographed somewhere, security like that, by that being prolonged to 10 minutes rather than 60 seconds. It's presumably a conscious part of the process of what you do.
Yes, it's the feeling you have for the place sort of intensifies by spending time. Yeah. I think that's something I'm very interested in, time, and for mean, it's quite nice that I can show the pictures for a long time, so it allows you again to follow that process by looking at it now and giving it the time and see perhaps details which are overlooked in the sort of usual way of relationship with the city. Caliban Towers was shown, as Andrew mentioned before, as a public art piece in Shoreditch, coordinated by MAF Architecture, who commissioned 7 artists to respond to Shoreditch in terms of its regeneration process. And of course, the dilemma is that Shoreditch in a way didn't need any artistic assistance in regenerating the area because it already was free fall at the time. And I decided to place this image underneath a bridge, which is the boundary between Hoxton and Trendy Hoxton and North Hoxton, where those tower blocks are. And the installation survived for 11 months, relatively unscathed, which very much surprised me because I thought it would provoke some kind of intervention. But now it has gone down, the lights are still on, and someone has written where the image was, the lie didn't work. So I don't quite know what to make of them. But for me it was very interesting to place something in the public and to see how, to take it out of the gallery and see what happens, and also open it up to a much broader audience. And there was no indication of it being an artwork, there was no name or no commissioning body was being mentioned. It was just placed there in a way, not like a billboard, because it has a different print quality to a billboard, but nevertheless quite unclear in its intentions, quite obscure. Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant is rather vicious barbed wire used by the post office around Mount Pleasant. But at the same time, it appears like a very organic, beautiful form, thereby pointing towards the paradox. Eroica was the last image of modern project, and it's the name of a symphony by Beethoven. And it's a structure which was built by NatWest Tower outside the tower, because after the latest IRA bomb damaged it, they decided to build this structure. Now I want to show you my new work, which I'm working on at the moment, called Liebeslied. And this is work which is very much in progress and isn't finished yet, so it's quite interesting for me to show it and talk about it.
What does Liebeslied translate?
Liebeslied is German and it means love poem or love song. And I want to start with a quote by Roland Barthes, which Michael Price were used at the beginning of my latest book, and which helped me to formulate my ideas about Liebeslied, which is to get out, go in deeper. And that's basically what I try to do, to leave the high-rise go down, you go in the river. And Liebeslied is also the name of this image. And I called it Liebeslied because I was very intrigued by the text you can see on the wall. And for me this text was not a graffiti or some tag. It was much more a composed, a very much considered text, which the writer, I presume, had tried to erase. So it's utterly frustrating, but at the same time very provocative that it's undecipherable. And this text, this remainder of communication, could be the elusive Liebeslied, the elusive love poem. And through the erasure, it has been made into some kind of stain, and which for me punctuated the night. For me, these baroque curves were sort of punctuated by this remainder of this communication, because it articulates the absence of the writer. And for me, the writer is a poet. Feuchte Blätter. Feuchte Blätter means moist sheets, moist leaves. And again, the moist sheets refer to the leaves of a poem, the writing on the sheets. And this puddle in the street creates an illusion of depth. And for me, it's a double vertigo. It's the vertigo of the depth, but also the vertigo of the height of the tree. And the pleasure of abandonment, of falling into the puddle, is somehow haunted by those leaves, by those fragile leaves who swim on the puddle and remind us of the transition of time. Because the leaves, of course, with their relationship to growth and process, are a very poetic reminder of time passing. And I thought I used this image to talk a bit why I work at night, and why those images are for me only conceivable during the night. And as I said before, the night allows a certain kind of autonomy. It takes it away from the documentary, but it also allows a very different kind of seeing, which is no longer about the daily seeing with your eyes, but it's about another kind of seeing, which is perhaps more akin to feeling your way towards something. Because during the night, the invisible can be better revealed. Things we overlook can be given the time to be made visible. And there's a German term, and this new work, Liebeslied, I found myself going back to some German history, my own German history too, and that's why I gave all the images German titles, and I've been thinking a lot about German poetry, and the German term, which for me is very beautiful, is geistig umnachtet, which is a description of madness, and basically means your spirit is covered by the night. And I think the night is in a way freer in spirit. There's another freedom possible during the night. Orpheus Nachtspaziergang, Orpheus' nocturnal walk. Orpheus, the loving poet, was the only mortal allowed to enter the underworld, and for me he offers another entry, because his nocturnal journey into the lower depths, into the abyss, were provoked by love and by his despair and loss. And I want to use this image to talk about the idea of walking. And walking, how it sort of informs the creative process, what its relationship to the creative process can be. And this kind of walking is not the walking of the flaneur who walks around for pleasure and entertainment and for divertisement. It's, for me, perhaps better to understand as the walking of the poet, who walks looking for another kind of encounter, maybe a luminous encounter. And I was intrigued to read that the poet Hölderlin walked about 30 miles a day, and during his walks he composed his poems. And that's something which is still audible in the rhythm of his poems, very much opposed to the rhythm of a Goethe poem, which you can hear the sedentary rhythm of someone sitting down in his study writing. And Blanchot says about movement, I quote, "Movement, this perpetual passage, is the misfortune of wandering, the disquietude of a time without repose, but is also the fecund migration, the movement that mediates." And Nietzsche says it even more categorically. He says, "Nur die ergangenen Gedanken haben Wert," which roughly translates, "Only the thoughts formed during walking are worthwhile." So I'm thinking, or I'm trying to find a new idiom for walking, for wandering. I'm not too happy with it, but that's at the moment the best I can come up with. Enges Bretterhaus, narrow stage. Narrow stage, the title came to me, it's a reference to Goethe's Faust. And he writes at the prologue for Faust, the prologue on theatre, where the theatre director encourages the writer, which basically is Goethe encouraging himself, I quote, "So stride on this narrow stage, the whole circle of creation, and stroll with measured speed from heaven through the world to hell." For me, Enges Bretterhaus, narrow stage, is like a stage, on a stage. It is a theatre, and one can sort of imagine what kind of play would happen on this stage. And it's also very much about the pleasure of confinement. This little cubicle offers, and how this confinement is a possible space for creativity. This solitary confinement, which, like in Desart's case, allowed him to write Justine. This confinement allowed his imagination to conceive of Justine. But of course, there's also the terror of confinement.
Is it important to you that the staging and setting is not manipulated by you, or do you manipulate?
Yes, that's very important. I don't want to create these scenarios. Those scenarios already exist, and I see them, but I wouldn't try to stage something.
So you didn't move the store at all?
No, but I have to admit that for the first time I used Photoshop to get rid of the Coca-Cola logo, which I felt was very intrusive and didn't add.
So your work is sophisticated in your manipulation, but just move the chair.
Well, it's enough. Nach innen translated in deeper. again, an absence articulated by footsteps. And maybe another slightly sexual metaphor for a title. This is the River Thames. And this is how far I got so far with Liebeslied. I'm working on it, and while I did Liebeslied, I also did some images in Germany, in a city called Trier, and I'll quickly show you some of the images there. I did. Is it me? I was commissioned to do work in Trier, and as I come from near there, I have a sort of relationship with the place, which helped, but at the same time was made it quite a challenge to work with this place. And this image is called 1999, and it is, as the architecture student of you probably know of this man, called Ungers. Ungers is a German architect, and he was commissioned to build a class cubus which protected this Roman excavation. And the Germans, especially the people in Trier, are very proud of their Roman heritage, so much that they fetishize it to the extreme, as you can see. So in this image, those times utterly collide, and collapse almost. And for me, it's quite interesting in terms of Germany's relationship to foreigners, this fetishization of history and their Roman past, and how they work with Eros Center. Again, another fetishization of history, this time a baroque scene of two lovers kissing. And the Eros Center is a brothel in Germany, in Trier, and mural advertises the pleasures inside. The sterility of the tiles is perhaps more indicative of what awaits inside. What's interesting is that there's no door, no visible door. The door is around the corner. Kreuz, cross. This cross is on a hill overlooking the Moselle, overlooking Trier is a Catholic city, needless to say. And I don't know if you can make it out, but someone has inscribed on the cross the name Henry. The last picture in the Trier series is this one called Trier, and it's a bridge over the Moselle, and underneath it's a place, one of those known places where people meet and hang out. A place free of commodification, just one of those forgotten spaces within the city. Okay, that's all the images I created. Thank you for listening.
So we have an opportunity to ask more questions if there are some.
done in some sort of collaboration or an instigation of architects, is that right?
No, absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely incorrect. No, Notitionist exploration was shown at Flamme, which was an artist from space a couple of years ago in the eastern of London. And Flamme, this small gallery, was actually on the 16th floor of a high rise. So it was a very site-specific piece for Flamme. And it sort of also perhaps summed up the rationale around Flamme.
For some reason I thought there was some connection with Schilling and Smith.
No. No, they were commissioned to do something on that estate
Right.
years after.
I've got a couple of questions there, kind of related. One is, do you say the ones in London, the locations you've chosen, is that random? Is that just from walking around knowing the city and spotting it maybe during the day? And going back?
No, that's about walking around at night and feeling your way towards places which sort of have a certain charge or energy.
Okay, that was my second one of my question was, would it interest you to go to a city you didn't know at all and try and do a photographic project very quickly?
Well, I don't know about quickly, but I wouldn't mind doing something somewhere else.
Where would you choose next city?
Well, Liebeslied is actually no longer so city-specific. It's almost more generic. It could be any city. I mean, went to Hungary from wherever. It's no longer linked so much to a recognizable site, but it's more about something deeper.
It seems that London at night is very specific politics, thinking about your work in the 1960s, just because we don't, just everything closes before. There is such a lot of dead in London at night. Cafe nights, urban nights for Londoners are quite a specific thing when you go to other cities right now.
It always intrigued me how the night has been demonized in England and how it's very difficult to access, places closed, no transport, and you're actively discouraged from walking around. But it's can be done.
I was actually quite interested in your cautious and not a mission to use Photoshop in one of the images. Is that the only image that you've done that in?
Yes.
How did it make you feel afterwards?
I think because it's Coca-Cola, it makes you feel. Yes. But I'm personally not really interested in Photoshop. I think the camera already has a lot of possibilities, and it's actually not for me. I really don't want to go down that route because then everything is possible and maybe something authentic gets lost. And my pictures aren't really that correct in a way anyway, because the colors are pushed to the limit and the 5:4 sort of again pushes the photographic medium. So I'm not against manipulation, but for me the manipulation of the 5:4 is
Surely the shadow of Photoshop falls over all of the work.
You mean it's on Photoshop?
No, but the implications of Photoshop elsewhere, even if you have implications.
Yeah, but when I started, Photoshop was not even that prominent as it is now. And you mean that the colors are so heightened or what?
No, just the fact that other people might be using Photoshop, it has an implication.
But it really doesn't interest me.
think the same thing could be said on some of your comments on the, you said in relation to the picture where you use Photoshop that you never staged what was going on. I think that's a question. But obviously the positioning of the camera and then you're creating already at stage just merely by taking one stage, giving a completely different aspect on it than would be possible even for the if you were standing at that point. So there does seem to be something very staged in a positive sense about the work.
Maybe considered would be a term I'm looking for. Something considered instead of staged.
You print your own photographs?
No. No, I get some printed. But I'm quite involved in the printing process. But I don't keep myself.
I was wondering if the first image, Vertigo, was flipped upside down.
Yes, it is.
And also, I was wondering if you choose. I guess I'm asking if you use daylight film, and which gives you the green fluorescent cast deliberately to. Well, not. Just first of all, is that the film you're using?
Well, I'm all for error, and I think error is a great liberation. And in terms of photographic history, one could say yes, the colors are all wrong and they're not corrected. But for me, that provokes something else, which I very much enjoy.
They're beautiful colors. They're a beautiful color.
Thank you, thank you.
When you decide to do photograph, do you just take one photograph?
No, I do studies with a 35mm camera before.
So when you talk about putting time and looking at the shots, you don't take one shot is the piece.
No, sometimes I have to go back and do it again. I mean, they take time.
Yes, I think the bar should still be open, so that's good. And just before you all go, I'd like to remind you that not next week, but the week after, Rolf Saxon will be continuing the series of lectures. But in the meantime,